Hello and welcome to Football Manager 2016. Phil here, and today I wanted to show you one of the saves which I've been playing for a little while now. So I decided to, well, there was a couple of things I wanted to do. First one was I wanted to test out the tactic which you've seen in previous videos, the possession tactic in the English leagues, to see how it would work out. And secondly, I wanted to set myself a tough challenge. So I decided to take over as Cardiff City FC. Now that's not necessarily a hugely tough challenge because they're a decent football club in the Championship. But what I decided to do was I'm only allowed to sign Welsh players. Now Cardiff is the capital of Wales. They're a Welsh club. They play in the English leagues, and I decided to just only sign Welsh players. So no foreign players, no English, Scottish, Irish, Brazilians, anything, just Welsh. Now Wales is not a bad footballing nation, but it would be, they don't have a lot of depth, as it were. So it will be quite a challenge because eventually I'm obviously going to have a team just full of Welsh players. So and also rely on my youth setup as well. Now this is Cardiff at the start of the season. So as you can see, they have, if you look down here in the bottom right, the transfer budget is just $1 million. That's not too bad. It's better than nothing, but it's not great. And only 55% of the transfer revenue that so for players I sell, I'm only getting 55% of what I get for them added into my transfer budget. Again, not great, but it's not too bad. Wage budget's okay, although we are spending very close to the limit, which isn't great, and it's also quite a lot as well for a Championship club. The actual squad itself surprised me because in the entire first team squad of the club from the Welsh capital city, there is not one Welsh player in there. Now, I didn't realise this when I started this, and I'd already kind of set my sights on just signing Welsh players and just trying to build a team of Welsh players, and then maybe eventually go on to manage Wales and see where we go from there. And I didn't realise that there were 0 Welsh players in the entire Cardiff squad. Now I think the only player who is slightly Welsh is Kenwyne Jones, who I think his second nationality is Wales. No, it's not. I think it does become, though, Welsh. Yeah, he's awaiting the paperwork, so he does become Welsh, although he's had 68 caps for Trinidad, so that doesn't really count, I guess. There are some good players in the under-21s and the under-18s who are coming through, but obviously, you can't. I couldn't just play a first 11 of just Welsh players at the minute. It would be impossible. So my idea was to just only sign Welsh players, try and build a squad of Welsh players, and then eventually see how the Premiership goes, and also see how the tactic I developed for possession football works out in the Championship, and then hopefully in the Premier League as well, if I get to that stage. So yeah, that's it. So what I'll do now is I've completed one season so far, so what I'll do is I'll load up this save, which is at the end of the season, so after my first season in charge, and we'll have a look and see how we did in the first season. Okay, so squad wise, if we scroll down, looks very different, and you can see we now have a lot of Welsh players in here. Now admittedly 3 of them are on loan, and some of them aren't that good, but I was really trying to kind of get into good Welsh players in there. Having said that, the majority of my squad is still not Welsh, so there's still a lot of work to do, and I think, judging on what I've seen, it's going to be a good few seasons before I can have a fully kind of Welsh squad from the seniors right the way down to the under-18s. Now, how do we do in the Championship? So we won it, which, if I'm completely honest, I didn't really expect. We won it fairly comfortably as well, which is weird because we didn't play very well throughout the whole season. We were just very, very solid, and I mean, if you look, you can see we won 24, drew 14, lost 8. Our goal difference was plus 25, which was the best in the league. So you look at that, and we were 8 points clear of second place. So you look at that and think, well, that's decent, isn't it? That's pretty good. But if we go to the schedule, you'll see we had a great start to the season, but a lot of 1-0s, 2-1s, things like that. A lot of draws as well. A few kind of 1-0 losses, that sort of thing. There weren't many very high-scoring games. The exception probably being the Cups, where we seemed to do fairly well in against lesser opposition. But really, it was very, very tight all the way through the season. There wasn't a game where I felt like we completely, not necessarily dominated, but a game where I just felt like sometimes you can feel after the first sort of 15, 20 minutes that, you're going to win this game. That's it. Game over, basically. You don't have to worry too much about what you're doing because, there's no way this other side's going to come back at you. We had a very poor finish to the season, but to be honest with you, by about here, I was about 10 or 12 points clear. So I knew that we could just kind of coast our way in, really, which is pretty much what we did through there. Cup-wise, we got knocked out in the 5th round of the FA Cup by Liverpool. No real disgrace there, I don't think. We were knocked out in the 3rd round of the Capital One Cup by Swansea, which was annoying because Swansea are another Welsh team and they are our kind of arch rivals, if you were. So it wasn't great to lose that game. But you can see here league positions. We won our first game, lost our second, I think, so we dropped down to 10th. But other than that, we kind of led from about halfway point and really just... It was a very weird season for me. I've never really had a season like that. Whenever I've won a league, it's usually been because I'm outstanding, the best team in the league. But in this, I never felt like we were. Sometimes we lost games and I felt like the other team really were much better than us. So if we go to some team stats here, we can have a look. And we can see that most goals-wise, so we weren't even in the top 8 for most goals. And that was our biggest problem this season. We just didn't score many goals. Now, luckily, we conceded the least by a long way, so very solid defensively compared to a lot of other teams in the league. Although, having said that, if you're conceding 47 goals in a 46-game season, then you're averaging 1 a game, which is pretty poor, really. Derby, who came second, aren't even on here. So it's a very strange league. The Championship is notoriously tough because there's a lot of very competitive teams out there. It's kind of understandable. Teams are conceding a lot and maybe scoring a lot, but we were the opposite. We didn't score a lot and we conceded very few. We had the most clean sheets, 21, which is really good. So defensively, very, very good. Didn't have anywhere near the most tackles won. And we fouled people a lot. But this is interesting. The most average possession. So we were the most. We had the best possession, and we had the highest pass completion rate, which is really good. I think that shows some of the strengths of the tactic I've been using, which is the 5-3-2 kind of short pressing tactic. You get a lot of possession in games. You don't concede a lot of goals. The only struggle you can have sometimes is scoring goals, which is kind of what we had, really. So you can see, I don't know if we were anywhere near any of these other... No. We were 6th in the headers one, which is good. Not too far off being the top there as well. So that's nice to see. It was a very, very strange season. If we have to go to player... we can have a look and see. Top goal scorer wise, we had no one in the top 8. Usually if you win a league, you have players in and around. At least if you don't have a top goal scorer, you're going to have a couple in there, in and around. We didn't have anyone. I think to be fair, our highest was 17, so it's just off there, which was Macheda. But you can see Adam Lefondre up there, 30 goals. Funnily enough, he's actually a Cardiff player, but he was out on loan when you start with Cardiff, and you can't recall him, so there's nothing I could do there. Would have been quite nice to have had him, I guess, but there you go. He's also not Welsh though, so it doesn't really matter too much. Now we do have some players here. So most clean sheets, David Marshall, and least conceded, which is great. We played him through the whole season. Very decent goalkeeper, did well for us. Most dribbles per match. So this young guy here is Welsh, which is great. Declan John, left back, probably my best Welsh player. Very, very good season. 7.62 average rating, 7 assists, 13 players of the match in 37 games. Very, very decent player. Very good. So he'll definitely be staying for a long time, that's for sure. If we go back, actually, let's have a look at who I brought in. So if we go to transfer history, we'll have a look. So you can see here, these are the players I sold on the right. We made in total 3.3 million in transfers. That was 2 players. Craig Noon went to Bournemouth, 2.3, and I'm not actually going to pronounce that, to be honest. This South African man, Kagisho, he went to Sheffield Wednesday for 1 million. So we made a little bit of money there, which enabled us to buy a few players. We brought in Callum Saunders from Crewe, who is Welsh. He's 20, he's young, he's decent. I wouldn't necessarily say he's going to be Premiership quality, but he's decent. He scored 9 goals in 34 games for us. Average rating of 6.9 is not too bad considering he's 20. Another kind of noticeable was George Ray, who's a central defender, who I think is pretty good. Not outstanding, but decent again. Played at 6.97 for us, which is okay. Not brilliant, but okay. And then we got in Hal Robson-Kanu, who is actually a Welsh international. And we got him pretty cheaply because he wasn't playing. He did okay for us. I was playing him up front towards the end of the season. He's not a natural striker, and he did pretty well. And as you can see, like, his finishing on first touch and stuff is pretty poor, but he's very quick, and I wanted a little bit of pace. So he did well for us. And then we got a few players on loan as well. All these players are Welsh, so I didn't all the players I got in were Welsh, which is good. That's what we wanted. So we're now going to be in the Premiership, which is going to be very interesting, because frankly I don't feel like the squad we've got at the minute is good enough to I don't know, not good enough to do anything spectacular in the Premiership, put it that way. I think I could possibly stay up just through us conceding not very many goals. I think we'd do well against the lesser teams in the Premier League. I think we're going to get beaten by the bigger teams, but I would imagine that we would finish around maybe 12 or 13 with this current squad. So the problem now is going to be, who do I get in to replace these players, because I can only get in Welsh players. And if we go to the Welsh squad and have a look, so these are kind of the best Welsh players. Well, I mean, if you look, these first few players here are not going to be available for us. So Aaron Ramsey, Gareth Bale, Joe Allen, Ben Davies, these players are not going to be sold basically because they're first teamers. So then you're looking down and going, well, who are these other players who I can sign and get in? Can I get in any of these, and are they going to improve my squad? We'll have to have a look. I think if I load up now for you, we'll load this one. Now this is getting in towards the start of season 2, so we'll have a look and see who I've brought in, who I got. Now what's interesting is I had a £27 million transfer budget in the Premier League, so I was very surprised at that, but also pretty happy. Because I knew that one of the things about getting in players, domestic players, as we say, I still think Welsh players are domestic, is you have to pay a lot of money for them. It's the same with English clubs buying English players. You have to pay a lot more money for them than if you're buying players from other countries, because there's just some sort of inflation which seems to happen. So I knew I was going to have to get in. And then if we go and have a look at our transfers, transfer history. So who did we get in this season? So again, all of these are Welsh. We got in, I think this would be Emir Hughes, who looks very decent, came from Huddersfield, paid quite a lot, 6.5 million, but he played very well last season for a very average Huddersfield side. 7.12 is very good. He scored 4 goals. 3 of them, he had the top 3 best goals in the Championship. They're all kind of like outside the box screamers, so he can obviously shoot as well outside the box, which could come in handy. Adam Matthews, now I was looking for a kind of Welsh right wing back, very, very quick, not very good mental stats, not too bad on the crossing front, and he can do a few other bits and bobs, so we'll see how he comes in. We got him for 5.25 million, which was a lot, but as I say, I'm having to pay premium basically. James Chester, now I'm very pleased with him, because one of the things we lacked at the back last season was pace. That's where we would get caught out. Had some very slow centre backs, very decent, but very slow. And one of the things I said in my video about this tactic, show you here, about this tactic in particular, is that you need to have centre backs who are pacey, because they're pushed right up, and if you have pacey strikers, they're going to get in behind a lot. So you need to have pacey defenders to try to counteract that. So James Chester, he's got good acceleration, good pace, decent for a centre back anyway, put it that way, and he's also got decent other stats. So I think he'll do very well for us. We got him for 5.75, which is not too bad, because West Brom paid 8 for him, and he played 14 games and did okay. So I was fairly happy with that, I think. We also got in Tom Bradshaw, who's a 24-year-old Welsh striker. I wouldn't say Premiership quality, but he could do a job for us, I think, coming in, and if we get some injuries and things like that. Potential ability, very good. Current ability, not quite so good. So work to be done, although I'm not sure how much we're going to be able to do as he's 24, but we'll see. He had a decent season last season. He was in League One, scored 15 goals, so we'll see how he gets on, basically. But I'm not thinking he's going to be a number one starter. We'll see. This guy, however, Sam Vokes, I'm thinking is going to be our number one striker. So he's currently the kind of striker for Wales, which is great to get someone in like that. We paid 6.25 million for him. He had a decent season, I'd say, last season with Burnley. Played at 7.2. What he's very good at is heading, which is good because we get in a lot of crosses with this tactic, so we need someone who's good at heading. He's very tall. I think he's 6'2", is it? Where is it? Attributes, yes, sorry, 6'2". So he's very good, very tall, great heading stats. So I'm hoping he's going to get me some goals, some important goals. We've got a guy called Jake Taylor, who's kind of a central attacking midfielder. So we have that option now. If we want to go in our tactics, if we want to push somebody up here, we can do that. In some games with this guy, I think he had a very good. Well, he was pretty good last season in the Scottish League, and I got him on a free, and he wasn't too expensive. So if anything, he's going to be some decent backup, I think. There, we got on loan here Jordan Williams from Liverpool, who's pretty decent, good centre back. Also a lot of versatility as well. You can see here he can play defensive midfielder. He's natural in all those positions. If only he was also a wing back, he'd be kind of perfect. Couldn't buy him, so had to loan him. But I think he'll be decent for us as kind of backup. And then Joe Ledley as well. Very pleased to get him for such a cheap price as well, 1.2 million. Crystal Palace got relegated last season, so he was going cheap. Also trying to get off Crystal Palace Johnny Williams, who is their kind of young Welsh central midfielder who's very decent, but I've run out of money. So I'm desperately trying to sell players to try and bring in money and things like that. We have offloaded a lot of players, as you can see. We got some good prices for them and also some very bad prices for some others, but it was more important to kind of get players like Kenwyne Jones out because he was on 30 grand a week and he wasn't playing. And just to prove, I think here he is Welsh now as well. So he was Welsh. We could have kept him on and played him, but he's just not very good and he's really expensive, so it wasn't really worth it. So we're in the Premiership now. Our goal this season is to avoid relegation. We'll see how we do. We've got a couple of games at the start of the season which we'll see how we're going to progress from there. So Norwich, West Brom, be interesting. I'll know after those two games how we're going to do, basically. I don't have any more money to bring any more players in, and I don't think there's any more players I can bring in. If we have a look now, you can see certainly going from no Welsh players at the beginning of last season to what have we got now? 3, 6, 9, 12, 13. Looking a lot better. Still working on getting rid of some players and bringing in some more Welsh players, but at the minute it's a delicate balancing act because I want to try and keep this team in the Premiership because that's where we need to be if we're going to build up our under-21s and under-18s to eventually bring those through, and also to be able to afford the really, really good Welsh players and have the kind of club level to do that. But if I was just playing these Welsh players I've got, I don't know if I could do that. So it'd be interesting to see how we go. The one thing which worries me is goals. Unless I get Gareth Bale, there's no real world-class Welsh strikers out there. Unless I can bring some up from the youth. So I'll be doing a lot of work there. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens. So I look forward to seeing you in the next episode, where we'll be at the end of the season here in the Premiership, and we'll see how we get on, how we did, who were the stars, and who didn't perform for us. So thank you very much, and I'll see you next time.